We're going to now start our discussion. The idea is within a very limited period of time, and there is no Q&A today. We want to bring to you some experiences, some memories from a very distinguished panel that we are very privileged to have here today, because they are very much not only part of the book but also great pioneers in their own right. And these memories are very fresh for them. So actually this opportunity is really very rare in Delhi. And by virtue of that discussion, then we would, I think, be able to introduce you to the book and the thoughts behind it. We're going to start today with Mr. Dubey. Mr. Dubey is known to most of you, and I think everyone knows everyone here. We're not looking necessarily to say more than that. Mr. Dubey was with our father Himraj Dang on Nanda Devi in 1961, and also on Everest the next year in 1962. Both those experiences are individual chapters in this book.
And with me, Nanda Devi, 2001.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So actually, this is the first question I was going to ask Mr. Dubey, which, what's it about people who go to Nanda Devi and those who don't? It seems like the world is divided into two kinds, and Rupin is clearly, obviously, in that club. Mr. Dubey, once you go to Nanda Devi, Himraj Dang, can I have a copy of the book, Rupin? Just pass it to me. These guys come back heartbroken. They come back sad, and it's something unique to Nanda Devi, because, and this is not an experience I have, by the way. Because Himraj Dang writes, the return from Nanda Devi is always sad, and one thanks the clouds that lend a softness to the mountains, that hide their beauty and give the grace of forgetting. That through all the lush rapture of flowers that grow knee-deep on the Alps of the Rishi, through the lazy forgetfulness of animal harmony, we were bound for the harsh world of conflict in the plains, where the careful balance of mind and body gained with much toil and perseverance would again be disrupted. The guy is heartbroken. Someone much before him, and you will recognize it, I will not accredit this because most of you should guess it. Return to civilization was hard, but in the sanctuary of the blessed goddess we had found the lasting peace, which is the reward of those who seek to know high mountain places. Exactly. So, again, another heartbroken person. So, my question for Mr. Dubey, what's so special about Nanda Devi that you come back heartbroken?
Thank you. Before I'll get to that in a minute.
Well, if you've lost a dead colleague, mountaineer, that's one reason, but there may be others.
No, but there was no dead mountaineer. There was no dead mountaineer.
Not on our expedition. Mercifully. First of all, I just want to say I'm very pleased that this book has been published. When I think of Himraj Dang, I think of two or three things, and I'll get to that if Himraj and Rupin want. But the one thing that I recognize about Hari a long time ago, and I have to say that my acquaintance, I knew him through most of our lives, but I knew him best of all in the years that Himraj has said. He didn't teach me. I was at Doon School. I left the year when he joined, the year before he joined as a master. But we were on Nanda Devi in 61, and that was 10 weeks away from civilization. By the way, I did want to say when Himraj said that we all know each other, it's probably because I think we are all a part of the Khan Market gang here. At least I see many fellow Khan Market visitors. So Hari was first and foremost a man who was extremely well read. I was 18 years old when I first met him, and he was 7 years or 8 years older. And the conversations between Himraj Dang and John Dias and Gurdjieff Singh, all three people, there were two other members who like me, were not as well read, were always erudite, philosophical, otherworldly, if you like, down to earth. I mean, these were fascinating. And now, I'm going to get to your question in a minute.
This is fine. We can do that in time.
The thing about Nanda Devi is, and this is, okay, let me answer that question. There is no mountain that I know, and of course there may well be in Tibet and elsewhere. Every mountain range has been more or less thoroughly explored. But there isn't a natural phenomenon of the kind that Nanda Devi presents. Look at it as a kind of inverted E. The middle prong has Nanda Devi east on the outer rim and Nanda Devi in the middle. And then the two arms of the E go all the way around, and they're penetrated and they're broken only where the Rishi Ganga goes out. I don't think there's a map in this book, but if you look at them on Google Earth or some maps, you'll see that the Rishi Ganga drains a huge basin. And the mountain range that encloses that mountain, the mountain peaks that enclose it, the two arms that enclose it are impenetrable except to mountain climbers. And it was only in 1933 that Eric Shipton and Tillman and three Sherpas, including Amtake, who was with us on Everest in '62, actually made the first penetration. A lot of people had tried off the Rishi Ganga into the basin that is now known as the Nanda Devi Sanctuary, the north and the south Rishi Ganga glaciers. So there is the first thing that there is about this. It is a paradise because the Rishi Ganga Gorge is an incredibly difficult terrain, and it's not easy to walk in. We were the 6th or 7th, I think, trip in, and there was no path. I'm talking about 1933 to 61. The Guru had been, Gurdial Singh had been 60, the French had been, Nanda Jayal had been 57, 51, and then in the 30s and 33, 36, whatever it was, there wasn't a path. When Rupin and I went in 2001, there was a fairly well-trodden path for much of the way. So the first thing is this impenetrable. And the second thing about Nanda Devi is when you sit at the base in the sanctuary, you've come through this gorge 8, 9, 10 days through vertical cliffs, climbing up and down, and suddenly you have this huge pasture land. It's really incredible when you cross the last range and you have these grasslands suddenly stretch out in front of you. And rising 10,000 feet, you can imagine this like a cathedral, is this beautiful mountain which soars straight above you. And in no picture that I've got, and I've taken so many, does justice to this. You have to stand there and look up 50 degrees and you see the summit of Nanda Devi more or less vertically above you.
A bit like this photograph.
Totally like this photograph. Except that, foreshortening in a photograph makes it difficult to. So that's what is magical about this mountain. Its remoteness, its beauty, its ethereal beauty, and the fact that it dwarfs everything that any living creature that goes near it. So I think that's one reason.
Perfect. Now I think that explains why I think those people who have had that exposure, and I can see in Hari Dang's writings as well, you come back so changed, and you come back actually really sad to have come back because nothing matches up with that, probably for the rest of your life. And I think some of that is captured here in this book. The one other question I had for you, which was sort of a mystery, because when you went in there first, you tried to climb Nanda Devi because that was your principal objective, and you found that as you moved up from Camp 1 to 2, it was all ice. It was very hard to make a campsite.
Well, what happened was, there were 6 of us. We we were 10 weeks in the basin. We had to leave a lot of stuff behind because we couldn't get enough porters, enough help to walk us in. We used goats, and goats can only carry 5 kilos on either side of their spine. So everything had to be broken. So we were really under-equipped and we were underfed, I think. This mountain is almost 8,000 meters. And I think we realized very quickly that the monsoon was early that year, that if we were to commit ourselves completely to this, we might eventually reach it, but then we would have spent so much time and energy in doing this that we couldn't explore the rest of the sanctuary. So when we found that the going was tough with all these obstacles that Hari writes about, we decided, okay, we'll come back to Nanda Devi another year, but let's go climb some mountains that we can enjoy, and we had 10 weeks of great fun. But that was it.
So my question was, had you reversed the order? Had you in fact gone and climbed Devistan and Maitoli or whatever else you wish to climb first, by then the Nanda Devi might have become...
Well, it took us 3 weeks to get into the basin instead of 10 days because we had to double carry.
Didn't have porters.
So we didn't have porters. We had to walk, do double carries. We had to come back and ferry loads.
Right.
So we were delayed. So had we gone to the lower peaks, we would have been washed out on Nanda Devi, which is very high.
Got it. Now, I think I might have interrupted you, but you were mentioning some things about Hari Dang and this era.
Yeah, I wanted to say this about Hari. Firstly, he was extremely well read. The second thing is, as you see in this book, he wrote beautifully. He has a detachment, he has a way with words, and he has a huge amount of learning in him. A lot of reference, and ideas, and he's extremely sensitive to where he is. So I find it extremely engaging to read what he writes and the way he writes it. The second thing I want to say about Hari is that he was one of the toughest people that I ever met. He was a very, very strong climber, and Mohan will, I think, having been near the Everest summit with him, will second this. The Nanda Devi Gorge, and I'm not going to talk about Everest, let Mohan do that. The Nanda Devi Gorge means climbing 2,000 or 3,000 feet up and down all the time to try and bypass cliffs and find your way in. Those were days when hunting for the cooking pot was an accepted thing. We're talking about 1961. Hari would get up in the morning, take one person with him, and shoot off up the hills, up the cliffs. And once in a while we'd hear the reverberations of a shot. And we'd say, we're going to have fresh meat today. It happened 3 times that we did. A lot of them missed. But on one trip I went with him. We were at a place called Rashi, and there is a young lady here who has that name. We were camped there, and Hari said to me, he says, will you come with me tomorrow? I'm going to try and shoot something. So I said, okay. He says, you better carry a rifle. I said, I've never fired a rifle. He said, just carry it. Doesn't matter. So I put a rifle on my shoulder and walked with Hari. And we walked up these cliffs, traversed them, and after a very long, sweaty and tiring day, we didn't see a puddle, we didn't see a thar, we didn't see anything. We joined camp. But he was like, this was his normal day. So he was extremely tough, and you'll see that examples of that in the book. He and Nima going off, Nima the Sherpa, going off somewhere, Bujgara, which if you ever look at Bujgara, you'll see it's just vertical cliffs about there. These are the things that stood out with him. He climbed in the mountains with such intensity and dedication. He suffered no fools. There were quite a few moments where, people didn't live up to his expectations, both on Nanda Devi and Everest, and they got quite an earful. But it was a marvelous learning experience to be with him.
Perfect. I think that captures just a fraction of your Nanda Devi experience, and something about Hari Dang as well. Let's move to Everest. Yeah. So I think that's sort of broadly the format with which we'll explore the Everest chapter here as well. I don't think, I can't imagine that so soon after Nanda Devi they would be going on an expedition again, but I think this is what happened. Of course, they were well prepared. There's a photograph in the book of Mr. Gurdiyal Singh, whom many of you would know, Mr. Dubey and Hari Dang meeting, I think, on Mr. Gurdiyal Singh's 90th birthday in 2014. So I think Hari Dang's presence on that expedition was probably a result of a recommendation from Gurdiyal Singh. And I think some 2 British masters were found. Mr. Lalit Mehra has informed us in the Blue School Weekly, so that they could take leave from the school and absent themselves. And so off they go to Everest, and a lot of description in this book about I think they leave Delhi in February. Can you imagine? The climb is in May, they leave Delhi in February because it takes so long to take the trains and get through Nepal and walk up. I assume that was good for fitness, but he describes it like walking in the middle of Napoleon's army. It's logistically very difficult when 500 people are sort of walking.
We had 600 porters.
600 porters, there you go. And so you have to be really very far ahead or very far behind for various reasons.
Not in between.
Never in between. That he describes like being in the Paris metro.
Himraj, I just want to... almost the entire Nanda Devi expedition was invited to Everest because John Dias was asked to lead it, and John Dias was our member. Right. So John Dias said, Gurdiyal, Hari Dang and me, please come with it.
Oh, that's right. That's the other connection. So it's not just the Gurdiyal connection, it's the John Dias connection. Actually, here's a very interesting point. I'm sorry, I forgot to ask you. And I'm going to ask Captain Kohli this as well. I've been happy with Rupen to put out and complete this book of our fathers. Our father, as Mr. Dubey says, suffered fools very poorly. He had very few people he admired. Very few. that was just his nature. One of them was John Dias. He had uncritical, absolutely loving admiration for this man. And I wish we could remember and commemorate John Dias for great leadership, which comes through this book, sensitivity, great technical climbing, and apparently a terrific sense of humor. Now, I suppose all Garhwal officers have such qualities, but I think John Dias was exceptional. Mr. Dubey, any recollections of John Dias that you can bring to us?
John Dias used to carry a little book of Palgrave's poetry in his bag, in his backpack, and every time we sat down to rest, stop, walking on the approach march, either on Everest or on Nanda Devi, and these long days, he'd pull out this thing and start reading poetry. And he had a wicked sense of humor, and he always made jokes about, these are politically incorrect things, but so I won't go into any details about the jokes, but, he died of leukemia at a very young age in 1965. His last letter to me, he was in the US and he was diagnosed with leukemia, and I was in Cambridge, and we used to write in those days. Of course, it took 3 weeks to 10 days to get a letter. So we used to be constantly in touch, and his last letter to me, he spoke about something's wrong with my blood, it must be thinking too much about women.